My brother disappeared for a year and showed up acting like nothing happened. My brother Ethan disappeared on a Tuesday afternoon. No argument, no warning, no goodbye. He just stopped existing in our lives. His phone went straight to voicemail. His job called asking if he was sick. His landlord called asking why rent had not been paid. His car was gone, but his apartment looked unfinished, like he meant to come back after grabbing groceries. At first, we told ourselves he needed space. Ethan had always been restless. He talked about starting over a lot, but days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. We filed a missing person report when his bank account stopped showing activity. We checked hospitals. We called friends. We barely remembered the names of. My mom slept with her phone volume all the way up every night for a year. She jumped every time it buzzed. My dad started leaving the porch light on, even during the day. Holidays became quiet and tense. We celebrated birthdays with an empty chair that no one mentioned, but everyone noticed. I dreamed about Ethan constantly. In the dreams, he was always just out of reach, waving like everything was fine. Then one afternoon, I opened my front door, and there he was, standing on the porch like nothing had happened. Same crooked smile, same jacket he used to steal from my closet. He looked healthier than I expected, relaxed, sunburned even. "Hey," he said, "you got food?" I honestly thought my brain had snapped. I stared at him long enough that he stepped around me and walked inside. He dropped his bag by the door and sat on the couch like it was his house again. No apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement of the year we lost. When my mom saw him, she screamed, then cried, then hugged him so hard I thought she might collapse. My dad just stood there shaking, staring at him like he was afraid he might vanish again. Ethan hugged them both and said he needed a shower. That night at dinner, he talked about traffic, podcasts, and how weird it was that our couch was still uncomfortable. He asked why everyone looked so serious. That was when I snapped. I asked where he had been. He shrugged and said he needed a reset. Life felt heavy. He wanted to start fresh for a bit. He said it calmly, like explaining a sabbatical. When I told him what we went through, he laughed and said we were being dramatic. Something about that answer settled deep in my chest and stayed there. I stopped confronting him. Instead, I watched. I noticed how his stories never had names or places, how he changed details without realizing it, how he avoided questions that required timelines. I noticed the way he kept his bag close, even when showering. A week later, while my parents were grocery shopping, I went to our old shared storage unit. Inside were boxes labeled with different names, fake resumes, burner phones, IDs that did not belong to him, clothes in different styles, notes with schedules and reminders written in handwriting I knew too well. My stomach dropped. Ethan had not been missing. He had been hiding, running small cons under fake identities, short-term jobs, borrowed money, fake friendships, then disappearing before consequences could catch him. I sat on the concrete floor for a long time before taking photos. My hands shook the entire time. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted this to be a misunderstanding, but it was not. I turned everything over to the police. Ethan was arrested quietly one morning while eating cereal. He looked genuinely shocked. He yelled that I betrayed him, that family does not do that to each other, that I ruined his life. I told him, family does not disappear and leave everyone else bleeding from worry. The investigation uncovered more victims than I expected. Employers he scammed, friends he borrowed money from, people who thought he had vanished just like we did. The year he was gone was not a mystery. It was a pattern. My parents were furious at me at first. They did not speak to me for weeks. Then slowly, painfully, the anger shifted. Therapy helped, time helped, but truth helped the most. Ethan still writes letters, pretending none of it was serious, pretending he will be different when he gets out. I do not respond. The house is quieter now, safer, and I learned something I wish I never had to. Sometimes the person who walks back into your life like nothing happened is counting on your relief to erase their damage. Do not let them.
I found a journal of a woman who went missing at my boyfriend's cabin. Liam was the human equivalent of a beige wall. He was dependable, sturdy, and utterly exhausting to look at for more than 5 minutes at a time. We had been dating for exactly 214 days. I knew this because Liam kept a spreadsheet of our relationship milestones. Most women would find that creepy, but at the time, I thought it was just a quirky sign of organization. We were currently at his family cabin to celebrate our anniversary. The place was a rustic nightmare of taxidermy and drafty windows. Liam was outside chopping wood with the intensity of a man who had something very personal to prove to the trees. I was inside, searching for a corkscrew because being sober in a house full of dead deer eyes was not on my agenda. That is when I saw the corner of something shiny peeking from behind the heavy oak wardrobe in the master bedroom. I pulled it out. It was a small leather-bound journal. The name Sarah was embossed on the cover in fading gold letters. I remembered Sarah. She was the woman Liam dated before me. He told me she moved to Europe to find herself and never looked back. My heart did a nervous little tap dance as I opened the first page. It said, "He thinks I am losing my mind, but I am just losing my patience. If you are reading this, you are the next project." The journal was a meticulous record of psychological warfare. Sarah described how Liam would move her car keys just 1 inch to the left every single morning. He would subtly change the thermostat by 2 degrees when she was not looking. He would whisper strange things in her sleep and then tell her she was having vivid nightmares when she asked about them later. It was not a murder plot in the traditional sense. It was a long-term plan to make her dependent on him by slowly shattering her sense of reality. The goal was for him to become her only source of truth. The final entries were the most chilling. She wrote about how he was pressuring her to sign over her shares of her family business so he could manage them while she recovered from her supposed mental breakdown. I looked out the window. Liam was still there, swinging the axe with terrifying, rhythmic precision. I felt a surge of cold fury. I am not a fragile flower. I am a woman who once spent 3 hours arguing with a parking meter and won on a point of technicality. I decided right then that I was not going to be a victim. I was going to be the main antagonist in the tiny horror movie Liam was trying to direct. I spent the next hour memorizing the notes Sarah had left. He had a schedule. He had a pattern. He would start with the small things to build a foundation of doubt. That evening, as we sat by the fire, Liam looked at me with his practiced, concerned expression. "Maya, honey, you look a bit pale today. Did you take your vitamins?" I smiled back at him, my eyes wide and perfectly innocent. "I did, Liam, but I noticed something very strange today. The kitchen clock is running backwards." Liam paused, his hand hovering over his wine glass. "Backwards? That is impossible, Maya. Maybe you are just tired from the drive." I shrugged and took a long, slow sip of my wine. "Probably. It is just that the numbers are all upside down too." He chuckled, a sound that lacked any real warmth or sincerity. "You definitely need some rest, so sweetheart." I went to bed, but I did not sleep. While he was in the bathroom, I reached into his perfectly organized briefcase and swapped his expensive fountain pen with a cheap plastic one that leaked blue ink. I also took one of his socks from his suitcase and hid inside the pillowcase of the guest room. The next morning, the game truly began. Liam was frantic. He could not find his pen, and his sock drawer was a complete mess. He kept glancing at me, waiting for me to show signs of confusion or distress, but I was the picture of calm. I told him I saw a man in a red hat standing in the tree line. There was no man in a red hat, of course. I watched through the window as Liam spent 3 hours patrolling the perimeter with a heavy flashlight, looking increasingly frustrated. By the 3rd day, the atmosphere in the cabin was thick with a tension you could cut with a knife. Liam was no longer the calm, collected manipulator. He was jumpy. Every time I laughed at a joke no one told, he would flinch. Every time I whispered to the taxidermy bear in the corner, he would turn pale. I found the second part of Sarah's plan in the very back of the journal. She had not actually gone to Europe. She was living in this small town 10 miles away, waiting for the right moment to strike. She had left the journal as bait, hoping the next girl would be smart enough to join forces with her. I used Liam's phone while he was in the shower to send a message to a number hidden in the back of the notebook. The reply was instantaneous. I have the paperwork ready. Meet me at the clearing tonight. That evening, I told Liam I heard a loud scratching sound inside the walls. He went into the crawl space with a flashlight, muttering about squirrels and old foundations. I followed him, but instead of helping, I slammed the heavy wooden hatch shut and slid the massive oak wardrobe over it. The muffled shouting from below was absolute music to my ears. I walked out to the clearing where a woman was waiting. It was Sarah. She looked healthy, vibrant, and incredibly smug. She held a folder full of legal documents. It turns out Liam had been doing this for years, targeting women with significant assets. But Sarah was a forensic accountant. She had spent her time away building a massive case for fraud and emotional abuse. We spent the night drinking the expensive wine Liam had saved for our anniversary and watching sunrise over the mountains. When the police arrived the next morning, they found Liam trapped in his own crawl space, surrounded by the evidence of his previous scams that Sarah and I had conveniently placed there while he was screaming for help. As they led him away in handcuffs, his hair disheveled, and his beige sweater covered in dusty cobwebs, I leaned in and whispered, "Liam, honey, you look a bit pale. Did you forget your vitamins?" He looked at me with pure, unadulterated terror. It was the most satisfying moment of my entire life. I did not just get my revenge. I got a new best friend and a really great story for my next date. But first, I think I will keep the cabin. Sarah and I already checked the deed, and thanks to a few clever legal loopholes he tried to use on her, it is technically in her name now, and she is a very generous landlord. I looked at the woods one last time and realized that sometimes the best way to deal with a monster is to show him that you can be a lot scarier than he ever imagined. The silence of the forest was finally peaceful.
My sister was crushed by classmates, and my older brother fixed everything. My sister Emma used to be impossible to quiet down. She narrated her life like an audiobook. Every drawing came with a backstory. Every idea turned into a full conversation. Somewhere between 5th grade and middle school, that version of her disappeared. She started answering questions with one word. She stopped sitting at the dinner table for long. She began asking our mom to drive her to school so she would not have to take the bus. The reason was obvious even before she admitted it. Her classmates decided she was different enough to be entertaining. They mocked her clothes. They stole her drawings and reposted them with captions. They created group chats just to exclude her and made sure she knew about them. Teachers saw the behavior but dismissed it as social conflict. Emma learned quickly that being quiet hurt less. I was angry but stuck. I was only a year older and just as invisible to the adults who mattered. My older brother Ryan was home from college one weekend when he noticed Emma barely touched her food. He asked one calm question, "Who is bothering you?" She hesitated and then handed him her phone. Ryan did not raise his voice or swear or promise revenge. He asked for details, dates, screenshots, names. He explained that evidence mattered more than emotion. Emma cried when he told her she had already done the hardest part by saving everything. Over the next few weeks, Ryan volunteered at the school under the excuse of needing outreach hours. He helped with events. He talked to staff. He learned which teachers ignored complaints and which administrators cared about image. He also noticed something interesting. The loudest bullies had parents who constantly preached values online. Ryan quietly connected the dots. One student was running anonymous bullying accounts using a school-issued login. That violated policy. Another had deleted messages after being reported. That violated policy too. Ryan waited until mid-semester when suspensions would actually stick. The school announcement came out of nowhere. Mandatory assemblies, digital conduct reviews, individual parent meetings, phones collected, accounts investigated. Emma recognized her own messages displayed anonymously during the presentation. The same kids who laughed at her stared straight ahead like statues. The ringleader cried in the hallway, loudly, Teachers suddenly cared. Apologies appeared overnight. Emma did not celebrate. She just walked lighter. At the end of the year showcase, Emma artwork was displayed first. After Ryan sent one professional email, the same classmates who mocked her applauded like they always supported her. On the drive home, Ryan told her that kindness after consequences still counts. Emma found her voice again. Ryan went back to college, and no one ever crushed my sister after that.
Ever feel like something's not quite right at your school, but you can't put your finger on it? It's exactly how I felt. Our school, Northwood High, just installed this Statify AI security system called Guardian. It was supposed to be for our safety. You know, facial recognition, behavior analysis, the whole 9 yards. Everyone thought it was amazing, a sign of our school being super advanced. But to me, a quiet tech nerd, it felt off. The principal, Mr. Harrison, was a bit too enthusiastic about it. He paraded it around like his personal trophy, constantly talking about efficiency and security. But the school's budget was suddenly tighter than ever. Art supplies disappeared, the music program got cut, and even the library had to reduce its hours. Where was all the money going? I started spending my lunches in the computer lab, not just to avoid the crowded cafeteria, but because I had a mission. I wanted to understand Guardian. I wasn't trying to hack it, not really. I was just curious. I dug into its public documentation, learning how its data analysis worked. It was designed to flag anomalous behavior, fights, vandalism, things like that. But I realized its definition of anomalous was much broader. It logged anything outside of the established daily routine. So I started my little experiment. I submitted a seemingly innocent data query request, something any student with basic coding knowledge could do. I asked Guardian to show me all non-student, non-teacher access to the school's financial offices after hours. Standard security protocol, right? The system beeped and whirred. Then, a single result popped up. A name, not a teacher, not a janitor. It was a local contractor, a guy known for building luxury homes. And the access logs showed him meeting with Principal Harrison in his office, late at night, multiple times a week. That was weird. Why would a home builder be meeting the principal so often and so secretly? The pieces started clicking into place. The budget cuts, the new security system that nobody asked for, and our principal's sudden shiny new car. It all pointed to something fishy. Guardian wasn't just a security system. It was a digital witness. It recorded everything completely impartially. Using what I'd learned, I ran a more complex query. I cross-referenced the school's vendor payment logs with Guardian's entry-exit data. Was looking for payments made to companies whose representatives never actually set foot on school grounds. It was a long shot, but my gut told me I was onto something. The computer processed for what felt like an eternity. Then, the results started pouring in. Dozens of them. Payments to shell companies for educational software that was never installed. Maintenance services that never happened. Consulting fees to people who didn't exist. It was a web of lies, and all the threads led back to one person, Principal Harrison. He wasn't just cutting budgets, he was actively stealing from us. From the students, the money that should have gone to our education was funding his lavish lifestyle. I felt this cold anger wash over me. This wasn't just about a few missing art supplies anymore. This was a massive betrayal of trust. But what could I do? I was just a student who would believe me against the principal. Then I looked at the screen, at the lines of cold, hard data. Guardian would be my voice. I spent the entire night compiling the evidence. I organized the data into a clear, undeniable report. The late-night meetings, the fake vendor payments, the access logs, it was all there. Time-stamped and verified by the very system Harrison was so proud of. I created visualizations, charts that showed the flow of money out of the school and into ghost accounts. I didn't need to add any commentary. The data spoke for itself. It was the most important project I had ever worked on. The next morning, my hands were shaking as I walked past the principal's office. I didn't confront him. It wasn't the smart play. Instead, I sent the entire report, completely anonymously, to the district superintendent, the school board, and a trusted local investigative journalist I followed online. I attached a simple note. The data from Northwood High's Guardian system tells a story. I think you should listen then. I shut my laptop and waited. The explosion was faster and bigger than I could have ever imagined. The journalist broke the story that same afternoon. AI system exposes corruption at Northwood High. It was everywhere. The news vans arrived. The district launched an immediate investigation, and Principal Harrison was placed on administrative leave. Seeing him escorted off campus, his face pale and shocked, was surreal. He never saw it coming. He thought the technology was his tool of control, but in the end, it was his downfall. The very system he used to watch us ended up watching him. In the weeks that followed, the full extent of his scheme came to light. He had embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars. The money was recovered, and the district promised to restore the programs he had cut. They even started a student oversight committee to help manage the school budget, and guess who they asked to be on it? It felt like a win, not just for me, but for everyone. We got our art classes back, the library went back to its normal hours, and there was this new feeling of hope in the hallways. This whole experience taught me something powerful. Technology isn't inherently good or bad. It's a tool, and its impact depends on who's using it and for what purpose. A system designed for surveillance can also be a tool for transparency and justice. It proves that even when you feel powerless, you're not. Sometimes all you need is the right tool, a little bit of curiosity, and the courage to look for the truth. So always stay curious, always question things, and never, ever underestimate the quiet kid in the computer lab. Thanks for watching.